Welcome the timeless forgotten mystery. On September 25, 1396, the largest Christian army ever assembled, over 100,000 warriors from across Europe, faced the Ottoman Empire in what would be remembered as the last Great Crusade. By sunset, it became one of the most catastrophic military disasters in European history. Welcome to Ancient Battlefield. Today, we uncover the shocking true story of the Battle of Nicopolis, where French pride and Ottoman brilliance combined to bring an end to the crusading era forever. The stage was set by the relentless expansion of the Ottomans under Sultan Bayezid, known as Yildirim, the Thunderbolt. They had already conquered much of the Balkans, and their siege of Constantinople threatened to destroy the Byzantine Empire and all of Christendom. Desperate to halt the Ottoman advance, King Sigismund of Hungary called on Europe for help. The response was overwhelming. From France came the flower of chivalry, led by Jean, son of the Duke of Burgundy. From the Holy Roman Empire marched thousands of German knights. Venice added its powerful navy, while England, Poland, and other kingdoms sent their best warriors. This was not just an army, it was the greatest gathering of European nobility in a generation. The French contingent alone included Count Du, Marshal Boucicaut, and dozens of other lords. They arrived with the finest armor, the most expensive weapons, and absolute confidence in their superiority over the Turks. The plan seemed simple: march down the Danube, relieve the fortress of Nicopolis under siege, and drive the Ottomans back into Asia. What could go wrong when all of Christendom stood united? As it turned out, everything. The French knights, proud of their reputation as the finest warriors in the world, openly mocked their Hungarian and Wallachian allies as cowards and incompetents. They refused to cooperate or accept Sigismund's strategic advice, dismissing him as a barbarian king despite his years of experience fighting the Ottomans. When they reached Nicopolis, the fortress was heavily fortified and defended. But the French were impatient for glory. Instead of laying siege, they demanded an immediate assault, convinced that Ottoman resistance would crumble at the first charge. Bayezid, meanwhile, had tracked their advance with calm confidence. Unlike the disorganized crusader host, the Ottomans had a unified command, disciplined troops, and a leader who knew both strategy and his enemy's weaknesses. On the eve of battle, while the crusaders feasted and bickered in their camps, Bayezid positioned his 60,000 men with masterful precision. He placed his irregulars and light cavalry in the front, not to win, but to wear down the enemy. Behind them, hidden from view, waited his elite janissaries and heavy cavalry, ready to strike the killing blow. At dawn on September 25th, the French knights could barely contain their eagerness for combat. Against Sigismund's desperate pleas for caution, they demanded the honor of leading the attack. Count Jean de Nevis declared that the French would charge first, or not at all. And so, nearly 3,000 of Europe's finest knights thundered forward in a magnificent but reckless charge. Their steel-clad horses and riders crashed into the Ottoman front lines, scattering the irregulars like leaves in a storm. For a brief, dazzling moment, it seemed the old magic of the Crusades had returned. But this was exactly what Bayezid intended. The French knights, exhausted and disorganized after pursuing fleeing enemies uphill, suddenly faced fresh Ottoman heavy cavalry and janissaries waiting on higher ground. The hunters had become the hunted. Their horses spent, their formations broken, the French were systematically cut down. Count Jean was captured, Marshal Boucicaut taken prisoner, and hundreds of France's greatest nobles lay dead or in chains. The rest of the Crusader army fell into chaos. With their spearhead destroyed, morale collapsed. Different contingents blamed each other, and what should have been an orderly retreat turned into a panicked rout. King Sigismund fought desperately to the Danube and managed to escape by boat, but most of his men were not so fortunate. The Ottomans pursued relentlessly, capturing thousands and seizing immense treasure and equipment. The aftermath was even more brutal. Enraged by earlier massacres of Ottoman prisoners, Bayezid ordered nearly all captured nobles executed, sparing only the highest ranking who could pay huge ransoms. The losses were staggering. Contemporary sources suggest around 20,000 Christians died, including much of the French and Hungarian nobility. The psychological blow was even greater. This had been the last great attempt by united Christendom to stop the Ottomans, and it ended in disaster. The Battle of Nicopolis marked the effective end of the crusading era. Never again would Europe assemble such a coalition against the Turks. The defeat confirmed Ottoman dominance in the Balkans and paved the way for their conquest of Constantinople in 1453. For France, Nicopolis was a national trauma that later spurred military reforms leading to the victories of Joan of Arc. For the Ottomans, It proved that even the finest European knights could be destroyed by superior strategy and discipline. The battle also exposed the fatal flaw of medieval European warfare, the belief that noble birth and individual courage could triumph over organization and tactics. The age of the knight-errant was over. At Nicopolis, it was buried. The last crusade ended not with triumph in the Holy Land, but in the muddy fields beside the Danube, where Europe's proudest warriors learned too late that valor without wisdom leads only to glorious destruction.